Guys, I don't normally do this. I don't normally stoop down to the pettiness that some players exuberate in the league, because at the end of the day, I don't know these guys personally. They have no bearing on my life, and why dedicate an entire video in calling out one player who will probably never see this and likely won't care? And above all, why critique someone who has made it to the highest level in their field of professional basketball? Well, there is something that really bothers me when players become so petty in the NBA with their cryptic messages via social media and comments to the press. And when it's guys like Kevin Durant or Draymond Green, I generally give it a pass, although I find it annoying. But when they're great players with incredible accolades and accomplishments, you just kind of have to shrug it off. But when you have a guy like Chandler Hutchison come out and tweet shortly after being traded that said, one man's trash, ... which was later deleted, to then posting this clip on TikTok just the other day, then sorry, but I had to say something. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, if you missed my last video, feel free to go ahead and check it out if you missed it. I was discussing what would have happened if the Bulls landed in the top 4 of the draft, which would mean that they would get to keep their pick, and how that would change the trajectory of their franchise. I'll leave a link to that in the description, and it'll also be the first video that you see here on the end screen of this video. But anyway, so in 2017, as I'm sure most of you know, the old front office of Garpax decided to pull the trigger on a rebuild by trading away Jimmy Butler. They then bought out Dwayne Wade at the last year of his contract, and then they chose not to exercise their team option on the final year of Rajon Rondo's deal, essentially wanting to go younger and rebuilding from fresh. Now, one guy who was a question mark for the Bulls going into that first rebuild season was Nikola. Mirotic was actually drafted in 2011, was a draft and stash type player and didn't join the Bulls until 2014. And from the start in his rookie season, Mirotic was actually looking like a pretty promising player. He finished in the all-rookie first team. He was a player who could spread the floor, but also had the size and the strength to score inside and rebound the ball. And although he was getting better with every passing season, he wasn't getting substantially better. And at the time, Mirotic was 26 years old going into that rebuild season, and the Bulls had to decide whether or not to extend him a qualifying offer for a longer-term deal. Well, the Bulls did, and Mirotic went on to have one of his best seasons of his career, although he missed a good portion to start the season after getting punched in the face by Bobby Portis, but we'll save that for another day. But when he did come back, Mirotic averaged 16.8 points per game on 43% shooting from 3 and 6.4 rebounds. The problem, though, was a rookie by the name of Lauri Markkanen had started to hit the spotlight with his incredible performance in his first season in the league, and the writing was somewhat on the wall. Does it make sense for the Bulls to hang on to both of these guys who play the same position and offer very same skill sets? And with Markkanen being a rookie, younger, and having a much more promising future, the front office decided to prioritize Markkanen, and before the trade deadline, the Bulls traded Nikola Mirotic to the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Tony Allen, Omar Ashik, and Jameer Nelson, all players who were well past their primes and really just filler at that point. But it also included the Pelicans' first-round draft pick for that NBA draft that upcoming offseason. Now, you're probably asking, what does this have to do with Chandler Hutchison and the topic at hand? Well, the reason being is that first-round pick that the Pelicans traded to the Bulls ultimately ended up being Chandler Hutchison, who the Bulls selected with their 22nd pick in the 2018 draft. Now, guys, I'll admit, I remember when the Bulls drafted this guy, I was super high on this pick. Almost even more so than their lottery pick who they used to draft Wendell Carter Jr. Not that I thought Hutchinson was going to be a better player than Wendell, but more so that I thought Hutchinson could end up being a huge steal in the draft for where he was selected. And because we traded him for a guy like Mirotic, a quality player at the time, you kind of hoped, if you were a Bulls fan, that this trade would end up being worth it. Now, Mirotic ultimately ended up leaving the NBA, not because he wasn't good enough to stay. He actually just missed playing in Europe and was able to get a substantial contract there to return. So, you can't really say the Bulls screwed up on that one, because Mirotic is, not that he's a star in this league now, but regardless, obviously the pick didn't work out for the Bulls, as evident by the fact that Hutchinson, when he did play, which wasn't very often, he was pretty bad. Not a good shooter, had trouble scoring in general, turned the ball over very frequently for the amount of time that he actually did play, and the thing that was hyped about Hutchinson going into the draft was the fact that he was supposed to be a great defender with two-way potential. I mean, there were some guys who were drawing Scottie Pippen comparisons to Hutchinson. Scottie Pippen which we can all agree was a stretch for the few that made those comparisons, but the defensive potential looked like it was going to be there. Of course, Hutchinson had a very underwhelming rookie season, scoring just 5.2 points per game on 4 rebounds. His defense was poor, and he had trouble staying in front of most of the guys that he would try to guard, who were much quicker professional basketball players versus the college athletes that he was used to guarding against in the Mountain West Conference, not even a premier conference in college basketball. And Hutchinson was absolutely abysmal from outside, shooting 28% from 3. His sophomore season, he improved marginally, but again, was out most of the year due to injuries, only playing 28 games, averaging 7.8 points. His defense had improved also a little bit. He was getting a little more scrappy and was able to pickpocket guys on the ball, but again, nothing really to be excited about. Then this season comes around, and this is Hutchinson's chance to really show what he's made of now that he's fully healthy. Well, in the first few games, he plays horribly, shooting just 28% from the field, not just from 3, but 28% from the field as a whole, and then not even averaging 2 points per game. He finished, with the Bulls anyway, averaging 1.9 points per game. His defense looked even worse than it did in his rookie season, and even the athleticism that we used to see every so often, those highlight dunks that we saw from him in his first 2 seasons, that wasn't even there in this season. And then, of course, to make matters worse, Hutchinson tests positive for COVID. He has to miss some more time, and then even after he was cleared from the NBA's health and safety protocol, he had to remain out due to personal reasons, which was never disclosed what exactly it was. Now, I remember in the Discord, I actually talked about, I was wondering if this actually had something to do with his mental health, because you really feel for a player who is struggling, who can't catch a break when it comes to injuries, or in this most recent case, COVID. And I remember feeling bad for the guy, hoping that everything was actually all right with him. But shortly after that, we saw him posting videos to TikTok or Instagram with him playing around on the bench, joking with guys, not really seeming engaged at all or caring what was going on in the game, not focusing on studying what was going on in Billy Donovan's offense so he could familiarize himself with it and be ready whenever he actually came back from his quote-unquote personal reasons. Well, he never ended up actually playing in another game in a Bulls uniform, as the front office decided to part ways with him and include him in that trade package that sent Troy Brown Jr. and Mo Wagner to the Bulls in exchange for Daniel Gafford and Chandler Hutchison. Now, Hutchinson had a nice debut with the Wizards, along with Gafford actually, and that's what led to the tweet that he later deleted stating, "One man's trash, ... What I kind of replied to that is, get the F out of here. You had a good game, one good game in your entire career. Congrats. Then, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you had Hutchinson with the TikTok clip where he said, when you get traded and you help your new team make the playoffs, with laughter as the background music. Now, guys, normally I wouldn't bat an eye when a player has been traded and then completely balls out with their new team, and their new team shows massive improvement and success as a result. I'm all for sticking it to your team that gave up on you. Like if Daniel Gafford did this, I probably wouldn't care as much, because Gafford gave it his all when he was on the Bulls, worked hard even though he struggled in his second season, and then when he got traded, he ended up being a hugely impactful player to the Washington Wizards. I mean, did you guys see his stat line the other night against the Pacers for the playing game? 15 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 blocks. That's incredible for a win or go home game. Hutchinson, on the other hand, 6 points and 2 rebounds. Great. And even if Hutchinson, had said something like, when you get traded, but you make the playoffs anyway, but to say that you helped your team make the playoffs, helped? What help? You averaged 5 points per game in your time with the Wizards, 3 rebounds in 15 minutes a game, with a horrendous PER of 6.8. That's help? He's out here acting like he's putting up insane numbers that are something to be proud of, or trying to stick it to the Bulls like they screwed up in trading for him because the Wizards barely squeaked into the playoffs and that he had any sort of direct impact on that. Daniel Gafford, that's a different story, because he is making it look like the Bulls made a huge mistake in giving up on him that quickly and performing at a level that is actually impacting the Wizards and their team's performance. But even then, most players, they just don't do that, right? Why? Because they're grown men, professional athletes who don't act like petty teenagers holding grudges for business decisions that are made when you're not performing well and meeting expectations. Stop acting like the Bulls were somehow holding you back, or that you are now playing at a high level that the Bulls should be regretting trading you. No, you did not play even remotely close to make the Bulls second guess their decision to trade you with the way that you were playing when you were with the Bulls. And it's not like they had any reason to keep you even now after the fact. Anyway, I know this might sound a bit harsh and it's probably a bit petty, I'll admit, but I just have a really hard time when players try to act like they're studs on the court and have such little self-awareness in terms of their play. Let me know what you guys think though. Do you think Hutchinson's recent comments are laughable, or that they're actually maybe justified, or maybe you just don't even care because, come on, it's Chandler Hutchison. Why are we even talking about him, right? Let me know in the comments, and guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.